right? Words which assail one's ears in the early hours of the dawn have a habit of going round in the head with insidious intent. Often, a person who has not understood their meaning will find himself humming them while he is about his business. So, if you hear something, some words spoken in the early hours of the morning, such words have a deep impact, insidious effect, intent, deep impact on you. Now, suppose you have not, even if you have not understood the meaning, you would sing those songs, repeat those songs, or hum those tunes. ଗୀତଟା ବୁଝିନ ୱାର୍ଡ ବୁଝିନ ଆଟଲିଷ୍ଟ ଟ୍ୟୁନଟା ତ ସମସ୍ତେ ଗାଇପାରିବେ ନା ତ ତାକୁ ମମ୍ବଲ କରିବା ତାକୁ ସିଙ୍ଗ କରିବା ଇଟ୍ ଇଜ ଏ ନ୍ୟାଚୁରାଲ ଥିଙ୍ଗ when Miss Mridula Sarabhai arranged for the exchange of abducted women between India and Pakistan, some men of Mullah Sukur expressed their readiness to take them back. Their relatives went to receive them in the marketplace. For some time, the abducted women and their menfolk faced each other in awkward silence. Then they swallowed their pride, took the women, and rebuilt their domestic lives. This had already happened. Some women who had been abducted during the partition, they had returned, right? Despite the initial hesitation, when they wanted to come back to their husbands, okay, initially, for the first few minutes, there was some kind of a hesitation. But then, such women were accepted. କାହିଁକି ନା ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ଓମେନଟା ଘର ଛାଡ଼ିକି ଯାଇଛି ସି ହାଜ୍ ବିନ୍ ରେପ୍ଡ ତାହେଲେ ମୁଁ ଆଉ ତାକୁ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ କରିବିନି ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ୍ ଦ ଜେନେରାଲ ଫିଲିଂ ହାଉ କ୍ୟାନ୍ ଆଇ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ ଏ ଓମେନ୍ who has been raped by others. This is the general feeling. When these women came back, there was a little hesitation in the beginning. The woman must have thought, if our husbands are going to accept us or not, right? Husbands must have thought, no, she is a blot on my pride. I'm a husband. How can I accept a woman who has been raped? Right. But after that, they rebuilt, they united, they were reunited and they built their domestic lives. Rasalu, Nekiram, Sundarlal joined the Throngis group and encouraged the rehabilitators with slogans like Long live Mohinder Singh, long live Sohan Lal. So these people had already accepted their wives. So long live these people. Now these people symbolize a cause. Right? By accepting the women, they have exposed that, they have shown that, they have displayed that they have a large heart. So they yelled till their throats were parched. Yelled is shouted. So these people shouted till the throats went dry, parched dry. There were some people who refused to have anything to do with the abducted women who came back. Now, what did they say? There were some others who said, no, couldn't they have killed themselves? Why did she return? Couldn't she have killed herself? Couldn't she have jumped into the well? Why didn't they take poison? Preserve their virtue and their honor. There were many who had committed suicide, who had drunk poison, or who had jumped into the well just to prevent themselves from the abusers, just to protect themselves from the abusers. So there were many instances of that, many examples of such women. ତେଣୁ ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆରେ ସେମାନେ ଯଦି ମରିଗଲେ ଟୁ ପ୍ରୋଟେକ୍ଟ ଦେୟାର ଅନର ଦେୟାର ଡିଗ୍ନିଟି you could have done the same thing also. ତୁ ବଞ୍ଚିକି କାହିଁ ଫେରିଲୁ? Why didn't they jump into a well? They are cowards. They are cowards because they stuck to life, they clung to life. So, they could not die. If you cling to life, you cannot die. If life is important for you, you can't die. So these people, these women, they are a disgrace for us, right? So they do not bring a sense of honor to us. If they had died, this would have been more graceful, more welcome. So ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଜୀବନ ନର୍କଠୁ ବଳି. Hundreds of thousands of women had in fact killed themselves rather than be dishonored. So many women, before they were victimized, they had committed suicide. How could the dead know what courage it needed to face the cold, hostile world of the living in a hard hearted world in which husbands refuse to acknowledge their wives? So, how difficult when your husband knows pretty well that you cannot be faulted, that you have not committed a mistake. It is not your mistake that you were raped, but he is not ready to accept you. So what pain it gives, what pain it causes in the heart of such women. But those who have already died, how can they understand this? They have already died. So they cannot understand how heartless the husbands became. And some of these women would think sadly of their names and the joyful meanings they had. Suhagavanti, the marital bliss. So you are Suhagavanti. Your Suhag is symbolic of husband. Suhag is your husband. So you are very fortunate. Your husband is alive. They would turn to younger brother and say, "Oh Bihari, my own little darling brother, when you were a baby, I looked after you, as if you were my own son." And Bihari would want to slip away into a corner, but his feet would remain rooted to the ground, and he would stare helpless at his parents. So my husband is not taking me. Bihari, when you were a small child, I took care of you. You are like my brother. Please do something. Please take me back. And that poor chap, he would look at his husband, parents. Parents steeled their hearts. They were determined not to accept the woman and looked fearfully at Narayan Baba. And Narayan Baba looked equally hopelessly at heaven. The heaven that has no substance but is merely an optical illusion, a boundary line beyond which one cannot see. So this heaven is an optical illusion, is an optical illusion. Beyond what is there, beyond it, we cannot see. So similarly, everybody expressed helplessness, heartlessness, right? They did not accept these women. Miss Sarabhai brought a truckload of Hindu women from Pakistan to be exchanged with Muslim women abducted by Indians. Not that only Pakistanis abducted Hindus, Muslim women also abducted by the Hindus, right? So truckloads of these women were brought. Lajwanti was not amongst them. Sundarlal watched with hope and expectancy till the last of the Hindu women had come down from the truck, and then with patient resignation plunged himself in the committee activities. Many trucks came loaded with women. Those Hindu women who had been abducted by the Pakistanis and they had been living in Pakistan for quite some time. So now they were brought back to India. So every time a truck came, Sundarlal would be with a lot of expectation, with a lot of hope, he would be waiting for his wife to come down. But on most of these occasions, there was no sign of his wife. The committee redoubled its work, began taking out processions, singing both morning and evening, as well as organizing meetings. The aged lawyer Kalka Prasad addressed the meetings in his wheezy, asthmatic voice. He was having asthma. So, in his wheezy voice, a sound would come out of his voice when he spoke. Rasul kept a spittoon in readiness beside him, into which he He did spit. Strange noises came over the microphone when Kalka Prasad was speaking. Neki Ram also said his few words, but whatever he said or quoted from the scriptures seemed to go against his point of view. So he was quite confused. So he was saying something, making a point, but whatever he quoted from the scriptures in support of the point he was making, that said another thing. So whenever the tide of battle seemed to be going against him, Babu Sundar Lal would rise and stem the retreat. No, no, sit down, sit down. Because he was saying one thing, then he was quoting the wrong quote, from the scriptures. He was never able to complete more than a couple of sentences. His throat went dry and tears streamed down his eyes. His heart was always too full of words. He had to sit down without making his speech. An embarrassed silence would descend on the audience. But the two sentences that Sundarlal spoke came from the bottom of his anguished heart. His heart was suffering. He had lost his peace of mind. Sundarlal didn't speak much. He only spoke a few sentences. But those two sentences spoke the suffering that he went through, the pain that he went through, and had a greater impact than all the clever verbosity of the lawyer. So, two sentences, very simple sentences, but they spoke about his pain, the suffering, the sorrows that he went through. So, this had greater effect on the audience than the complex sentences, verbose sentences that Kalka Prasad spoke. The men shed a few tears, lighted the burden on their hearts. So when you shed tears, your burden is lighted. That was the only way to lighten your burden. Right? And then they went home without a thought in their empty heads. One day the Rehabilitation of Hearts Committee was out early in the afternoon. He trespassed into the area near the temple, which was looked upon as the citadel of orthodox reaction. Orthodox reaction, traditional. No, such women cannot be accepted because they have defiled themselves by being raped by the Muslims, Muslim youths. They have defiled themselves. They have made themselves impure. So, such people cannot be accepted. The faithful were seated on a cement platform under the peepal tree and they were listening to the commentary on the Ramayana. By sheer coincidence, Narayan Baba happened to be narrating the incident about Rama overhearing a washerman say to his errant wife, I am not errant wife who had made a mistake by overstaying in her father's home. I am not Sri Ramchandra to take back a woman who has spent many years with another man. And being overcome by the implied rebuke, Ramachandra had ordered his own wife Sita, who was at the time far gone with the child, to leave his palace. Right? So what Ramachandra said? No, Sita, I am sorry. You overstayed at your parents' home. I won't be able to accept you. Oh, Ramachandra accepted her. But the fisherman was giving Ramachandra's example. Am I Ramachandra? Am I Lord Ramachandra, King Ramachandra, that I will accept you? I can't accept you. Lord Ramachandra can. King Ramachandra can. But I can't accept you. You have overstayed at your parents' place. Can one find a better example of the high standard of morality? He was saying. Narayan Baba was asking his audience. This is a high standard of morality that Ramachandra is showing or displaying. Such was the sense of equality in the kingdom of Ram, that even the remark of a poor washerman was given full consideration. This was true Ramarajya, the kingdom of God on earth. So, ଯଦି ରାମଚନ୍ଦ୍ର ତାଙ୍କ ୱାଇଫକୁ ଜଙ୍ଗଲକୁ ପଠେଇଦେଲେ, ରାଇଟ୍, ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ କେମିତି ଏ ଓମେନ୍ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ କରିବା? They have spent some time with the Muslim youths. They must have been raped by them. So how can we accept them? They must have lost their honor, their respect, self-respect. ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କୁ କେମିତି accept କରିବା? The procession had halted near the temple. It had stopped to listen to the discourse. Sundarlal heard the last sentence and spoke up. We don't want Ramarajya of this sort. If this is what you call Ramarajya, not accepting a wife for a mistake that she didn't commit, she was victimized. So if this, if you call this Ramarajya, I'm sorry, we are not going to accept this. Be quiet. Who is this man? Silence, came the cries from the audience. Sundarlal clove his way through the crowd and said loudly, no one can stop me from speaking. Another volley of protest came from the crowd. Silence! Okay? We will not let you say a word. And someone shouted from a corner, we will kill you. Narayan Baba spoke gently. My dear Sundarlal, you don't understand the sacred tradition of the Vedas. So the pure, holy things that the Vedas speak. You don't understand the message of the Vedas. Sundarlal was ready with a retort. I understand at least one thing. In Ramarajya, the voice of a washerman was heard. But the present day protagonists of the same Ramarajya can't bear to hear the voice of Sundarlal. Right? So it's a pity. When Ram was ready to hear the voice of a mere washerman, when a mere washerman was able to speak his mind, why you are not allowing me to speak? The people who had threatened to beat up Sundarlal were put to shame. You are talking about Ramarajya, Ramarajya, Ramarajya. What Ramarajya are you thinking of? Are you prophesying? The people who had threatened to beat up Sundarlal were put to shame. Let him speak, yelled Rasul and Neram. Silence, let us hear him. And Sundarlal began to speak. Sri Ram was our hero, but what kind of justice was this? That he accepted the word of a washerman and refused to take the word of so great a Maharani who was his wife. So you accept the words of a washerman, but you don't accept the words of your wife? What kind of justice is this? So Ram was unjust. Narayan Baba answered, Sita was his own wife, Sundarlal, and you have not realized that very important fact. Babaji, there are many things in this world which are beyond my comprehension, which I don't understand. I believe that only true Ramarajya is a state where a person neither does wrong to anyone nor suffers anyone to do him any wrong. So this is the meaning of Ramarajya according to me. You don't inflict pain on others. You don't victimize others. And you don't allow yourself to be victimized by others. ना तमे काहाकू प्रॉब्लम रे पकेइबो ना काहार प्रॉब्लम रे तमकु जे पकोथबो ताकू सहिबो. This is true Ramarajya. Sundarlal's words arrested everyone's attention. He continued his speech, oration. Injustice to oneself is as great a wrong as inflicting it on others. So sahijiba chupchap, putting up with everything, tolerating everything, accepting an injustice, and doing an injustice, both are same. Even today, Lord Ram has ejected Sita from his home only because he was compelled to live with her abductor, Ravana. What sin had Sita committed? Wasn't she the victim of a ruse and then of violence like our own mothers and sisters today? So the condition that Sita went through, she was abducted by Ravan. She didn't go willingly with Ravan. She didn't follow Ravan willingly. She was forced to go with Ravan. What was Sita's mistake? What was Sita's sin? Right? What has happened to our own women today? They have not gone away willingly with the Muslim men. They have been abducted by the Muslim men. ତାଙ୍କୁ ହରଣଚାଲ କରିକି ନେଇଯାଇଛି by force ତାଙ୍କୁ ନେଇଯାଇଛି. So how can you say they are wrong? So ତାଙ୍କ ସେ ସୀତା ଆଉ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନର ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ସିଚୁଏସନ ଇଜ ଅଲମୋଷ୍ଟ ସେମ୍, condition is almost same. What a question of Sita's rightness and wrongness, or the wickedness of Ravan. Was it a question of that? Ravan had 10 heads. Donkey has only one large one. Today our innocent Sitas have been thrown out of their homes. Sita, Lajwanti, Sundarlal. So those days it was Sita. Today it is Lajwanti, my wife. Rasalu and Nekiram raised aloft their banners. School children had cut out and pasted slogans on them. They yelled, "Long live Sundarlal Babu." Somebody in the crowd shouted, "Long live Sita, the queen of virtue." And somebody else cried, "Long live Sri Ramchandra." Many voices shouted silence. Many people left the congregation and joined the procession. Narayan Baba's months of preaching were undone in a few moments. People were convinced by what Sundarlal was saying. So Narayan Baba had been, preaching for a long time. But people found what wrong was there in his preaching. So they left the congregation. They left the place and went away with Sundarlal. The lawyer, Kalka Prasad, and the petition writer Hukum Singh led the procession towards the great square, tapping a sort of victory tattoo with their decrepit walking sticks. Sundarlal had not yet dried his tears. The procession sang with great gusto. The leaves of Lajwanti wither with the touch. The dawn had not yet grayed the eastern horizon when the song of the processionist assailed the ears of the residents of Mulla Sahukar. The widow in house 414 stretched her limbs and, being still heavy with the sleep, went back to her dreams. Lal Chand, who was from Sundarlal's village, came running. He stuck his arms out of his shawl and said breathlessly, "Congratulations, Sundarlal." Sundarlal prodded the embers in his chilam and asked. He was smoking chilam, ganja in chilam. And so he said, "Now, why congratulations? What for, Lalchand?" "I saw sister-in-law Lajo." The chilam fell from Sundarlal's hands. The sweetened tobacco was scattered, thrown here and there on the floor, fell on the floor. "Where did you see her?" he asked, taking Lal Chand by the shoulder. "Hey, tell me, where did you find my wife?" "On the border at Wagha." Sundarlal let go of Lal Chand. "Freed him. Chhod diya usko. It was sister-in-law. It must have been someone else," he said quickly, because he had gone there many times himself. But he didn't find Lajwanti ever. So, this time he thinks it must be somebody else. Desperation, hopelessness. Huh? It must be somebody else, not my wife. "No, brother Sundarlal, it was sister-in-law Lajo," repeated Lal Chand with reassurance. "The same Lajo." "Could you recognize her?" asked Sundarlal, gathering bits of the tobacco and mashing them with his palm. You know, those who take tobacco, they mash it in powder. He took Rasalu's chillam and continued, "All right, tell me, what are her distinguishing marks? Any special mark that you saw which tells you or which can reveal whether it was Lajo or not?" Yes, exploded Sundarlal. You were a strange one to think that I would not recognize her. She has a tattoo mark on her chin and another on her right cheek. ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଛି, tattoo ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଛି. Yes, exploded Sundarlal, completed his wife's description. Yes, the third one is on her forehead. One here, and one here. He sat up on his knees. He wanted to remove all doubts. He recalled the marks Lajwanti had tattooed on her body as a child. They were like the green spots on the leaves of Lajwanti, which disappeared when the leaves curl up. His Lajwanti behaved exactly in the same way. Whenever he pointed out her tattoo marks, he used to curl up in embarrassment, as if in a shell, almost as if she never stripped and her nakedness was being exposed. Right? A strange longing as well as fear racked Sundarlal's body. He took Lal Chand by the arm and asked, how did she go to the border? How did she get to the border? How did she come to the border? There was an exchange of abducted women between India and Pakistan. What happened? Sundarlal stood up suddenly. Repeatedly, he spoke. Impatiently, he spoke. Tell me, what happened then? Rasalu rose from the charpoy. Charpoy is a cot. Huh? Wooden cot. Wooden charpoy on which he was sitting. In his smoker's wheezy voice, he said, is it really true that sister-in-law Laju is back? Lal Chand continued his story. At the border, the Pakistanis returned 16 of our women. They took back 16 of theirs. There was some argument. Our chap said that the women they were handing over were older, middle-aged and of little use, as if women were only a thing of use. Why are you returning only old people, middle-aged people? Where are the young girls? Where have they gone? Where are the young ladies? Why you are not bringing them? A large crowd gathered. Hot words were exchanged. Then one of their fellows got larger to stand up on the top of the truck, snatched away her dupatta and spoke. Would you describe her as an old woman? Look at this. Somebody pulled away the dupatta, removed the dupatta, and said, this one, look at this one. Is she old? Will you call her old? Take a good look at her. Is there one amongst those you have given to us who could measure up to her? Not a single woman you have handed over to us is as beautiful as this woman is comparable to this woman. Lajo Bhabi was overcome with embarrassment, began hiding her tattoo marks. The argument got very heated. Both parties threatened to take back their goods, mal. Both Indians threatened the Pakistanis. Pakistani authorities threatened the Indian authorities. No, we are going to take back our mal, our goods. Degeneration of women. I cried out, Lajo, sister-in-law Lajo. There was a tumult. Tumult is a confusion, great disturbance going on. Our police cracked down upon us. There was a lathi charge. Lal Chand bare his elbow to show the mark of a lathi blow. Look at this. This is the mark of a lathi blow. Rasalu and Nekiram remained silent. Sundarlal stared vacantly into space. Sundarlal was getting ready to go to the border at Wagah when he heard of Lajo's return. He became nervous, could not make up his mind whether to go to meet her or wait for her at home. He wanted to run away, to spread out all the banners and placards he had carried, sit in the midst and cry to his heart's content. But like other men, all he did was to proceed to the police station as if nothing untoward had happened. Suddenly he found Lajo standing in front of him. She looked scared, afraid, right? And shook like a peepal leaf in the wind. Sundarlal looked up. His Lajwanti carried a dupatta worn by Muslim women. She had wrapped it around her head in the Muslim style. Sundarlal was also upset by the fact that Lajo looked healthier than before. So, male feelings crept in. If you are so sorrowful and sad, how can you put on weight? If you are sorrowful and sad, you should not be eating. And you must have lost weight. How she had gained weight? Tamani, you were living very peacefully, very nicely. You were happy to live there. Her complexion was clearer. She had put on weight. He had sworn to say nothing to his wife, but he could not understand why. He had sworn, he had promised to himself that once I get back my wife, I am not going to talk anything regarding her past life, the times he had spent in Pakistan. But he could not control himself. He could not understand why. If she was happy, had she come away? Had the government compelled her to come against her will? So does it mean that she has put on weight, that she is looking fairer? Does it mean that she was happily living there? Right. So has she been compelled to come here? Is it my love that has brought her here? Or is it compulsion being forced by the Pakistani authorities. There were many men at the police station. Some were refusing to take back their women. We will not take the slots left over by the Muslims. They were accusing their women. These are prostitutes. We will not take them back. Sundarlal overcame his revulsion. Sundarlal had some revulsion, feeling of revulsion. He didn't want to take her back, but he overcame that. He suppressed that. He had thrown himself, body and soul, into this movement. And there were his colleagues Nekiram, the old clerk, the lawyer, Kalkaprasad, with their raucous voices yelling slogans over the microphone. Though the babble of the speeches and slogans, through the babble of the speeches and slogans, Sundarlal and Lajo proceeded to their home. The scene of 1,000 years ago was being repeated. Lord Ramachandra and Sita returning to Ayodhya after their long exile. Some people were lighting lamps of joy to welcome them, and at the same time repenting of their sins which had forced an innocent couple to suffer such hardship. Right? So some people took them as if Ram and Sita were returning to Ayodhya after the killing of Ravan. Right? Sundarlal continued to work with the rehabilitation of hearts committees with the same zeal, same interest. He fulfilled his place in the spirit in which it was taken. He had fulfilled it by accepting his wife, by rehabilitating his wife in his heart. He had acted, he had proved that he was true to the spirit of the committee. Whatever the committee spoke about. Now, even those who had suspected him to be an armchair theorist were converted to his point of view. But there were many who were angry with the turn of events. The widow in number 414 wasn't the only one to keep away from Lajwanti's house. But there were still people who were orthodox in their beliefs, who didn't want to change their mindset. No, they are impure. They have been mutilated. They have been abused. And so let them stay there. Sundarlal had nothing but contempt for these people. Hate. He didn't like such people, he hated them. The queen of his heart was back home. His once silent temple now resounded with laughter. So, in the absence of his house, in the absence of his wife, his house had become a deserted place, a smasan, a cremation ground. In a grave, it's a graveyard. It had become a graveyard. What do you find in the graveyard? Complete silence. But it had once again become a temple. It resembled with laughter. He had installed a living idol in his innermost sanctum. Sanctum sanctorum hela joti the idol of the deity is placed in the temple. Heta kuhanti garbhagriha sanctum sanctorum. तो ता निज sanctum sanctorum माने कौन ता निज हार्ट रे से ताको प्लेस देइतला काको द आइडल हिज वाइफ and sat outside the gate like a sentry. Sundarlal didn't call Lajo by her name. He addressed her as goddess Devi. Lajo responded to the affection, began to open up as her namesake unfurls its leaves. Just as Lajwanti opens its leaves, just as the plant opens up its leaves, similarly she opened up. She was deliriously happy. She didn't expect that her husband would take her back so happily, so excitedly, without punishing her. She wanted to tell Sundarlal of her experiences. Sundarlal did not ask anything. She wanted to speak up. But Sundarlal would not let her broach the topic. Sundarlal, he didn't allow her. No more of your, none of your past experiences. I'm not interested in all those. At night, she would stare at her face. When she was caught doing so, she could offer no explanation. And the tired Sundarlal would fall asleep again. Only on the first day of her return had Sundarlal asked Lajwanti about the black days. Who was he? Only one question he had asked. Lajwanti had lowered his eyes and replied, Jumma. That was the name. That was the person who had victimized her, abducted her. Then she looked Sundarlal full in the face, as if she wanted to say something. But Sundarlal had such a queer look, strange look in his eyes, and started playing with her hair. Lajo dropped her eyes once more. Sundarlal asked, Was he good to you? Yes. Didn't he beat you? Did he? Lajwanti leant back, rested her head on Sundarlal's chest. No, he never said anything to me. He didn't beat me, but I was terrified of him. You beat me, but I was not afraid of you. Promise me one thing. You won't beat me again. Will you? Please don't beat me again. He was nice to me, but I was afraid of him. You beat me, but I loved you. I appreciated you. I was confident about you. Sundarlal's eyes brimmed with tears. In a voice full of remorse and shame, he said, No, Devi, never. I shall never beat you again. Devi? Goddess? Why do you address me as Devi or Goddess? Lajo pondered over the word for a while, then began to sob. She thought of that word. Why does my husband call me Devi or Goddess? And she started crying. She wanted to tell him everything, but Sundarlal stopped her. Let's forget the past. You didn't commit any sin. What is evil? What is evil is the social system which refuses to give an honored place to virtuous women like you. That doesn't harm you. It only harms the society. So he found fault with the society. So if somebody is wrong, it's the society. So by not allowing to accept people like you, women like you, the society is at wrong. You are not at wrong. You have not committed any sins. Lajwanti's secret remained locked in her breast. She looked at her own body, which had, since the partition, become the body of a goddess. It no longer belonged to her. She was blissfully happy. But her happiness was tinged with disbelief and superstitious fear that it would not last. So why does she was not happy that her husband was calling her God and treating her as God, calling her goddess, right? Many days passed in this way. Suspicion took the place of joy. The initial joy was over. Now she was doubtful, not because Sundarlal had resumed ill treating her, but because he was treating her too well. What did she say? You bait me, but I was happy with you. I was happy, you know, I was afraid of that man. He ill treated me. He treated me well, but you know, I was all right. He didn't beat me, but I was not comfortable with him. I was comfortable with you because you beat me. As if, accepting the beating. If you are a woman, you must accept, you must be beaten by your husband. If your husband doesn't beat you, if he treats you with a sense of respect, then you are not worthy of being called a woman. As if she is trying to tell this. ତମ ହଜବେଣ୍ଡ ଯେ ତମକୁ ନ ବାଡେଇଲା ତାହେଲେ ତମେ ଓମାନ ନୁହଁ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଭୁଲ ଅଛି ସେଥିରେ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ there is something to be doubtful about. She wanted him to be the same old Sundarlal with whom she quarrelled over a carrot, who appeased her with a radish. Now there was no chance of a quarrel. Sundarlal made her feel like something fragile, like glass, which would splinter at the slightest touch. So by calling her Devi or goddess, Sundarlal was not treating her the way he used to treat her in the past. So this change in the treatment baffled her, confused her, made her completely unhappy. Lajo took to gazing at herself in the mirror. Arid in the end, she could no longer recognize the Lajo she had known. She was no more the Lajo she had known. She had been rehabilitated, but not accepted. Sundarlal didn't want eyes to see her tears, nor ears to hear her wailing. And still every morning Sundarlal went out with the morning procession. Lajo, dragging her tired body to the window, would hear the song whose words nobody understood. The leaves of Lajwanti wither with the touch of human heart. So this is one more story where you find the effects of partition. How partition uh, broke families, shattered families into pieces, and how there was suspicion, how the people behaved, how the women were ill treated, and what happened, how families were disintegrated. You get enough example of that. Thank you very much.